You're welcome back to the Pulse on the Joy News channel on Multi TV. Now, after more than 10 days of strike, the Judicial Service Staff Association of Ghana, JUSSAG, have called off their strike following several discussions with governments over the harmonization of their salaries and allowances. Before we bring you their bets at their news conference today, let's speak to the Employment and Labour Relations Minister, Judicial, for more on the story. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon, and thanks for the opportunity.
Right, so today we're learning that JUSSAG has called off a strike. How did we come to this agreement?
It's probably the best thing for JUSSAG to have done, because it's not a fair labor practice to be negotiating whilst one of the parties will be on strike or will create an atmosphere of intimidation. And rightly so, I do not think that in law the strike was itself justified, a matter they were battling with the National Labour Commission. But for me, what is important is for them to maintain the peace and harmony for the delivery and administration of justice, and to avoid conduct that will obstruct or impede the administration of justice in the country, even as they push a legitimate demand for a review of their salaries and allowances, which has been referred to the executive by the Judicial Council for appropriate action. I am personally encouraged by this development, and I'm personally satisfied that today the Atuforcing Committee, which is mandated to negotiate with JUSSAG together with their leadership, met for the first time to reopen and to recommence negotiation. My hope and prayer is that we conclude this early in time so that government will be able to factor it into the budget of 2017 and look at what other decisions we have to take as a country. But we need to walk the constitutional process, the requirement of Article 158, which I believe we will do jointly. So, welcoming news to hear that JUSSAG is back to the negotiation table. We are committed to discussing the principles and the core issues relative to what they have tabled as an approval from the Judicial Council on their consolidated salaries and allowances. And they should trust that government means well if we negotiate it within the context of government-based pay or government pay policy under the single spine. What is it that is peculiar to them? I'm sure the Atuforcing Committee will advise appropriately.
Okay.
But now it's a question and a matter of time that we deal with it expeditiously in order that they don't have to revert to an action which can undermine or obstruct the administration of justice.
And it's good you mentioned how soon these deliberations will continue, because I wanted to ask Mr. Idrisu, is that to mean that we are at the very end of negotiations, or that you have given them something for them to go back?
No, we are not at the end. We are not at the end, but the parties agree that if they are able to complete the process earlier than the 30th July deadline, the better for all of us. I should want to commend the Judicial Secretary, at whose instance last night we still met within the offices of the Supreme Court building late into the evening to reach out to JUSSAG to yield to come to the negotiation table and abandon the course of action, which was not productive for all of us, even though they have made a pronouncement on their behalf. And I should think that the leadership of the Judicial Service have been very supportive. What is important is you can negotiate and get what you want without necessarily resorting to a strike action. I think that we need to maintain the sanity of our industrial landscape whilst we push ahead our legitimate demand. But certainly welcoming news for all of us and for people who are seeking justice and who suffered some unnecessary delay as a result of the withdrawal of the strike action. Government recognizes that the judiciary is critical to good governance and to governance generally, and plays a critical role in our democratic process, and therefore anything that can impede the administration of justice should be of collective concern to all of us, including the workers of JUSSAG who are within the realm of justice.
All right. Mr. Idris, final word, sir. It's about what we've had to lose as a result of these days of no work in the courts. Who bears the cost of this?
I don't have the economic value of it. You also must be evaluating it from the point of view that it certainly undermines productivity, no doubt about it.
So it means that for the businesses that have had to be put on hold because of these contractual agreements, which should have been sorted out in court, is something we just have to say bad loss.
At least for now, they have an opportunity to go back to court.
All right, thank you, Mr. Risu, for your time this afternoon. But also joining us on the line is the president of JUSSAG, Alex Nate, for more on this story. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Nate.
Good afternoon.
Great, thanks for joining us here on the program. First of all, what did it take for you to call off your strike today?
What has led to restoration of workers of the judicial service to work is the consensus government and ourselves have built on the implementation process of the issues that came up.
What is this consensus, sir?
Come again?
What is this consensus? I want the details of this consensus, sir.
We have agreed to look at the issues from one angle and to endeavor to conclude any engagement that will facilitate the resolution of the issues timeously.
Now, we know that one of the reasons you went for the strike was because there were issues to do with your consolidated allowances. Does that mean that you've been paid, or that payment is being done immediately?
We're not talking of payment, we're talking of an institution of the right pay regime for ourselves.
So has that been given to you?
I have said that we have agreed with government to look at the implementation process from one angle.
What angle is this, sir?
So it means that it is not a question of payment. It's not a question of it being over, but a collective effort by the Association, Judicial Council, and government in dealing with the issues as early as we have, agreed upon.
Now, what firm assurances were you given? Because we have been at this point before, sometime last year, when you asked government to do this very same thing, and they didn't. What's the guarantee that they will do it now?
Well, I have indicated that we have always exhibited confidence in the structures that need to come to play, and we don't look back. We put the past behind us and work towards the future positively. And so there is nothing like doubt as to what any of the parties would do. And so posterity is there to determine who has done well and who has not done well.
Mr. Nate, it's very interesting you say this, because I remember when you made the announcement indicating that this strike is going on because government has gone back on its word in giving you what you wanted initially.
Yes,
now you're saying that
it's not interesting. What I'm saying is factually acceptable because we have agreed to go back to negotiate and conclude this thing. And when you are at negotiation, you put the past behind you, you desist from being negative. I am a negotiator myself. I am a mediator. I understand the things perfectly. And so in the course of dealing with the issue, every stage and what your utterance must be. And I'm saying that whether or not in the past we couldn't succeed does not give me basis to continue to be acrimonious and doubtful. So I put the past behind me, and I engage government in confidence.
Okay, that's fine. But Mr. Nate, within the period that your members were not delivering services because you were on strike.
I am not going to answer that question because I don't owe anybody explanation.
Why not, sir?
Everybody who is raising that issue was sleeping when judicial service staff were being underpaid. So anybody who has an issue with it can come over with his basis and we'll meet the person. We want to say that we owe nobody apology to that. And those who want to read economic meanings, we can go ahead and do it.
But Mr. Nate, you also understand that
when we have people do not know the conditions under which we work. Okay, people work and take their good pay and live on and live a longer life. They don't ask as to how the judicial service staff are paid and what our lives become after retirement. And they say we should sit down and say that because of whatever they will say as to time and man-hour lost, we shouldn't fight for our rights. Please, I'm not ready to answer that question.
I'm not sure many are saying that don't fight for your rights, sir. The question many are asking is that, yes, you are back at the negotiation table.
That kind of question.
Why not, sir?
Those who have problem with this, you have problem with it, but we don't owe them any apology.
For those who've been on remand because the courts were not working?
Yes, but you don't sacrifice us in order to grant anybody a bail? Is that what you are saying? We are also fathers, wives, and husbands.
What about those who've had to stay in cells beyond the 48-hour limit?
Come again?
I'm saying, what about those who've had to stay for more than 48 hours?
We don't care about that. It's not our duty to guarantee their hope. Our duty is to be paid in order to facilitate the process.
All right, Mr. Nate, thank you for your time this afternoon. Interesting. Thank you, sir, for your time. Alex Nate is the president of the Judicial Service Staff Association of Ghana. So he says that for all the days that they've not been working and what we've suffered as a result of their strike is immaterial for them. What is important now is that they are back at the negotiating table and they will go ahead to press on for what they need in terms of having them migrated onto the system as soon as possible. As you heard the Employment and Labor Relations Minister mention, all of this will be done in terms of the negotiations by the end of July. So we'll see between now and July whether all these matters will be ironed out and whether or not we may be resuming to another strike or not. We'll see how that plays out in the coming days.